Welcome, Pewter Report readers, listeners, and viewers to another edition of the Pewter Report podcast, energized by Celsius. I'm John Ledyard from pewterreport.com, and Scott Reynolds is also with me today from pewterreport.com. And man, it just continues. Good days to be covering the Bucs, to be Bucs fans, to be in the NFC South, to be in the NFC. It's just all runs together, it seems, these days. And there's a Buccaneer coming back into the fold for his 10th season with the team. It's some good news that we'll talk about today. We'll talk about all this Baker Mayfield stuff because I know y'all are going to have questions about it. And even though I think our answers will be quick and expected, we'll talk about it today, what that situation looks like. We'll talk about Blaine today and what the quarterback situation.
Ooh, goody.
Yes, I know, Scott. That's why you were on the show today.
That's right.
About Blaine a little bit. And we'll also touch on this Tyreek Hill madness. Maybe we'll start there. In fact, the Tyreek Hill madness getting traded from the Kansas City Chiefs out of nowhere today in a matter of like 45 minutes. Tyreek Hill was a Chief and everything was good in Kansas City, and then he was gone. And so we'll talk about all that on today's show. Scott, how are things going on this Wednesday in Bucs world?
In Bucs world, fantastic. In Chiefs Kingdom, not so much.
What happened?
Well, Tyreek Hill, Cheetah, has run off to Miami.
Yes,
and chased a payday. And he'll be having to chase some passes from Tua Tagovailoa, and I don't know that that's going to be anywhere close to what it was with Pat Mahomes, right? I think that Mahomes was certainly the better quarterback out of the two there. And so I think that Cheetah is, of course, Tyreek Hill is one of those players that is chasing the coin as opposed to chasing another ring. He's already won one. He's been at 2 Super Bowls, and obviously the Buccaneers prevented him from winning the second one. So I think that is a move that really has to be Buccaneer fans, make them happy, especially with the fact the Bucs are facing the Chiefs this year, right? They're facing Kansas City, probably over in Germany. That game has not been announced yet, but I think that's going to be the opponent. NFL would love to have Patrick Mahomes versus Tom Brady in that game. I just don't think that they're going to have the weaponry to keep up with the Buccaneers, almost like they didn't have in the Super Bowl. But
I know you can't see me right now because my camera is just turned off, but I can still hear you. And so let me just,
John Ledyard.
That's right. Let me just say this and add this to what you're saying right now. I think it's very funny how the matchups have shifted even this season for the Bucs. Like no Tyreek Hill for the Chiefs, no Devontae Adams for the Packers, and that matchup is just a lot different looking.
No Russell Wilson for the Seahawks,
right? No Russell Wilson for the Seahawks. Like it just is already shifted somewhat, and this is why I never overreact to the schedule too early. Like I know it looks a certain way per se, but like it just rarely kind of pans out that exact way, and so that's why I think the hesitancy with the schedule is kind of usually always a good thing, and I think that people shouldn't overreact at this point and should just kind of wait and see what that looks like going into.
John?
Yeah, back for a second.
Yeah, for a second.
It'll get fixed here in a second.
Technology is great when it works.
Love it. It's great. Yeah. It's awesome. It's never happened on the show though. But yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why I'm not overreacting to that part of it. But I am obviously looking at this as another stroke of good fortune for the Bucs and what's been an offseason full of these kind of things so far. And it's funny, Scott. I mean, Jason Light continues to have, first of all, a lot of things go his way, obviously, but also make a lot of good things happen this offseason.
No doubt.
He's just kind of continued to do that. And now they're bringing back Will Gholston into the fold as well. And it shows that this is a team that's ready to gear up and go all in for Super Bowl. All their moves kind of show that they're a team willing and ready to do that. So it brings me to like the biggest thing for me. Why aren't other teams feeling that way? Like, why aren't the Chiefs feeling that way and keeping Tyreek Hill? Why are the Packers not feeling that way with Devontae Adams and recognizing that how important that piece is to them winning a Super Bowl? It's critical, Scott, and it doesn't seem like all these teams realize that.
I'm with you, John. And the thing too is when you look at the Buccaneers really gearing up and going all in again for another Super Bowl. And these other teams, and you mentioned Devontae Adams and Will or Tyreek Hill, chasing the money, if you will, and getting these massive deals. It really has reset the wide receiver market, and it's done so at a great time because, boy, Chris Godwin at $20 million looks like a bargain now. He's a bargain, John. You've got Chris Godwin at $20 million, right?
Mm-hmm.
You've got Mike Evans at 16.5. You add those two players up, you're getting Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, two Pro Bowlers, 2,000-yard receivers, right? For $36.5 million on average, right? And Tyreek Hill's making 30. You're getting both of those guys for almost what you're getting out of Tyreek Hill if you're the Miami Dolphins.
Yep.
And, I mean, Hill's a phenomenal player. He's a talent, right? There's no doubt about it. But two is better than one, John. It just is.
Right. No question. I mean, Hill's great. No doubt about it. He's one of the best. I mean, I think those are probably the best two receivers in the league. But at the end of the day, Scott, like, you need that guy to win. Like the Chiefs have, what are they? Juju Smith-Schuster's a solid player. Like Mecole Hardman's a solid player, but Travis Kelce's about to be 33 years old. Like this is, I just don't understand it. If you're Kansas City, everybody else in your division just got better.
Yeah.
You got to, and again, they've got picks, so maybe they can reload it. But this offseason, as Common Sensei says, is absolutely been the craziest ever. Started with Brady coming back, and it's just been an absolute whirlwind ever since of crazy activity. Really and it is unbelievable where we have ended up in the disparity between the AFC and even when an AFC player leaves, like a Deshaun Watson or Tyreek Hill, they stay in the conference. But all the NFC good players are going to the other conference. It's really crazy how that's unfolded.
The crazy thing too is, and you mentioned, right, like the fact that the Buccaneers, there was talk the Buccaneers might be interested in Deshaun Watson, right? And then we found out a while back. I reported in SR's Fab 5 that there were some issues that were really making the Buccaneers pump the brakes. Mm-hmm. And then it became clear that it was kind of down to a two-team race in the NFC South, but not in Tampa Bay. Obviously, they had Brady come back, but with the Falcons and the Saints, and all of a sudden, right, he just opts for Cleveland. And remember, you were at the Combine with Matt Matera from Pewter Report, and you heard Jason Light and Bruce Arians say, we'd love a quarterback, but gosh, there's just none of these guys that are going to be traded this year. There's just no trade market. Then all of a sudden, bam, Russell Wilson, and bam, Deshaun Watson, and bam, Matt Ryan.
No trade market to y'all, maybe, but
exactly,
because y'all's roster, people aren't trying to give you a quarterback, but to the other conference. To the AFC, absolutely. There's been plenty of movement on that front. And so it is, man, it has been a wild offseason that has come up, mostly Bucs. Let's talk about this. Jonathan Stutzman, we appreciate the $10 super chat. And now hopefully it's an awesome 3+ years, is a quote from Jason Light, if not more than 3. Let's go. P.S. Thanks for the great content as always, Scott and John and the rest of the PR team. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you. This was a quote from Jason Light today. I don't know. To me, it's kind of obvious, Scott. Maybe I'm always, this way on these things. I think I'm the wet blanket guy, but obviously he'd like Tom Brady back if he wants to play again. And I mean, unless Tom Brady falls off a cliff this year, like I just felt like this was kind of like, if not, 3+ years, if more than 3, like he's just kind of saying, if he wants a 4th year, like if he wants to be here, like that door is open, which he'd be easy not to say that at this point. So I didn't really find it particularly noteworthy. I don't think anybody's expecting an extension to get announced in the next day or anything like that.
Right.
I don't think it has anything to do with the Bucs, but I think if you're Brady, it just makes way more sense to be a free agent after this year. And honestly, if you're the Bucs, it kind of makes more sense too. Like, what if he does fall off a cliff or get hurt, or like you're set, and what if he retires again and then you're stuck with more dead cap and all that? Like, I don't know. Like, to me, it just makes kind of a lot of sense other than cap reasons. I get why they can restructure, and they will at some point here with him, I'm sure. I don't know. To me, it did make a lot of sense. It would be something that they would do right away. Maybe you feel differently, or you've talked to people. I don't know.
It sounds to me like it would be a redo of the contract or restructure rather than extension. And that's not to say that it won't be. I'm just saying as it stands right now, that's kind of what the thinking is. And I wouldn't be surprised if both sides wanted a little bit of flexibility too. Again, Jason Light saying, hey, we'd love to have you back, Tom, for multiple years, right? For 3+ years. But even if they don't extend a deal now, doesn't mean that if Brady wants to play in 2023, John, that he can't do a 1-year deal with the Buccaneers again, right? I mean, there's nothing to prohibit that. And if he wanted to look around the landscape and play another year at age 46 somewhere else, he would have the right to do that. And I think Tampa Bay would be in a better position with their team. And, they'll probably know this year. And, you mentioned something really, you put it very well in your column, your Bucs briefing today, which is must read. You got to read that, Buck fans. Go to pewterreport.com, read John's Bucs briefing. But he talks about how if Kyle Trask can't beat out Blaine Gabbert, and we kind of think that's going to be the veteran that they're going to re-sign, but we'll talk about maybe Baker Mayfield in a second. But if it is Blaine Gabbert, and if Kyle Trask can't beat out Blaine Gabbert this year as a second-round pick, right? And that's not exactly a slam dunk, John. It's not easy, right? Because first of all, you've got the looks, right? I mean, he's right. He's a hell of a multiple quarterback
levels here. Yeah,
it is, right. And then he's got the multiple years in Bruce's offense, and he's got playing time, right? Plus, it's like here you have Tom Brady, who wants to tag in Blaine Gabbert after he leaves, so you've got that to deal with too. But the thing is, if you're Kyle Trask, you're a second-round pick, with that pedigree, you should give Blaine a run for his money, if not beat him out. And if you can't,
absolutely.
It says something.
If you are clearly still behind Blaine Gabbert after year 2 and throughout the year, I mean, really once camp's over, you don't get a whole lot of chances to see what's changed at that point. Whoever your 2 is kind of just gets the 2 snaps unless there's an injury. You don't get to see a whole lot of difference at that point. But man, it just if you can't beat out Blaine Gabbert, like we are just not going to sit here and pretend, as much as we love and hype up Blaine, we're not going to sit here and pretend that Blaine Gabbert is some like quarterback in waiting or something. It has been much crazy. He's had opportunities. Yes, there have been bad teams, bad situations, but he is deep in what is he, 33, something like that?
30. He'll be 33 this year.
33 this year. So I mean, this is not like a upside play at quarterback where Trask, you'd like to think his best days ahead of him are playing football are ahead of him. And if he can't win that job, it's highly concerning, Scott. There's no question about it. So
and I tell you, if I'm the Buccaneers and I really want to get a good look at Kyle Trask, I play Brady maybe a series or 2 in the first preseason game, and then that's it. Yeah. And I sit Brady, and I just let it be the Blaine Gabbert and Kyle Trask show, which I'm there for. Like I'm all about it. Like let's pop the popcorn, let's watch the show, and I think that would be ideal. And of course, this is the year, and Bruce has already said this. It's like gosh, this is like when you would love to have that 4th preseason game to really get even more reps for your young developing quarterbacks and players.
Right. And I think Brady last year, if I remember right, 3 preseason drives, I believe he had. I think that was right. 3 like preseason drives, I think he had on the year. So it'll probably be they probably just let him do whatever he wants. He picks how much he wants to play in the preseason. So I think you'll see you'll get ample opportunity to see whatever that battle might be. Some people think it's going to be Baker Mayfield in there. We're going to talk about that in a second, Scott. But first, I got to talk about our friends over at Celsius. They power active lives every day with essential functional energy, and they are the proud title sponsors of the Pewter Report podcast. Celsius, you can find it all over the place, and you can find these wonderful flavors all over the place. I'm drinking Wildberry today. But essential energy accelerates metabolism, burns body fat. There's no sugar in these. It's unbelievable. They've been able to create the variety of flavors and the unbelievable taste without any sugar. And you can find them at Celsius.com. If you use the store locator, you can find out where they sell them near you, or you can go to pewterreport.com, click on the banner ads, get the Amazon subscribe and save option coming to you on a regular basis with a variety of awesome flavors.
Speaking of which, John, guess what I did in the past hour? I went to my door. Mr. Amazon was there with a big case of Celsius. This was a happy day for me. Not just because I'm doing the podcast with you and talking Bucs football with the peeps. I love our Pewter people out there in the podcast chat. But when I opened the door and opened the box and I saw a case of orange for me, a case of watermelon for Ashley, a case of tropical vibe for the whole family because that's a family favorite. Then another case of Fuji apple pear. I mean, just best day ever.
Best day ever. The way you said it.
Yeah. I mean, it really was. I was like,
it's great stuff.
It was like Christmas in March. So
that's right.
Very cool.
We're talking about Baker Mayfield, so I had to put my hat on and put it on backwards.
Of course,
Colin Cowherd, obviously. But that has been the topic of conversation today amongst some Bucs fans is Baker Mayfield's status, kind of what's going to happen with him. And there have been rumors around the internet that the Bucs are interested. Just rumors, no real reports, and it would be hard to logically come up with a path for Baker Mayfield to the Bucs. We're going to attempt to do so a little bit today. Browns would have to give us Baker for nothing, that comment said.
Yeah.
But Baker would have to be humble to be a backup. True. Big if there on Baker being humble. Don't know if that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Baker set to make $18 million this year. And that is difficult, Scott, to kind of, how do you fit that in the Bucs budget? You really can't. So there's two paths basically forward. Bucs would never, I don't believe, take Baker at $18 million. They'd have to clear cap space to add Baker in a contract year, who is about to be a free agent. That would just not make much sense to me. The only path is like if the Browns said they wanted to eat like his salary, like almost all of it, which has been thrown out there. But here's the thing, what I've learned in the last few hours, Scott, even though that's commonly how the Baker trade is being talked about right now, because there's hardly any teams that have cap space and need or want a quarterback or want Baker. The reality is that the Browns are willing to do basically anything to get him off the roster and get him off the payroll more than anything. So apparently the Browns are just willing to like eat the loss on the trade if they don't have to pay him. So if they'll take, like, in other words, like a low round pick. Like,
if I'm Jason Light, I'm calling him and saying, here's what we'll do. We'll take him off your hands. You pay him all the money and you give us a couple draft picks and we'll take Baker. So
I mean, it could be like a silly trade. Like, it could be, I jokingly, floated Scotty Miller for Baker straight up. Like, and honestly, that would, if the Bucs didn't have to pay the compensation, it would be possible maybe just to have another option in the house. That would be possible. But there's the key factors of how much he's owed this season. This is the 5th-year option season. It's not the rookie year contract season. So that makes it a very tough thing to kind of digest for the Bucs. Yeah. And then the other part of it is what was mentioned there in the last comment before this one is like the personality of Baker. How will he fit in Tampa Bay as behind the best quarterback ever? Like, is he going to be teachable?
Yeah.
Big question mark. I don't know. Like, I really don't. I've never seen a quarterback that doesn't throw to a wide open people as often as Baker does.
I know. I could see him too, like in the first media scrum in Tampa. Baker, what's it going to be like to learn behind one of the greatest quarterbacks the greatest quarterback of all time in Tom Brady? And then he would say, well, I mean, I'm going to be competing for the job. So, I mean,
that's right. I might start over him.
I mean, you're saying I'm going to be a backup, but that hasn't been decided yet. Right? That's right. What you would say. Right.
It's an open competition in camp, in my opinion.
Yeah. Exactly.
I mean, it would be very humbling, man. If he took it the right way. So, but I just don't see this happening. So I would put.
You see him going to your Steelers, John? That's what A. Corman says.
Yeah, I've heard that rumor for a few days too. Would not make any sense to me, just because if you're the Steelers, like, you just signed Mitch Trubisky, you have Mason Rudolph there, and you want to add a rookie. I think that everybody kind of knows that. Where would he fit in? I mean, it's never bad to have more answers when you're in a non-winning window. Right. The Steelers are in a non-winning window. So, like, if they got him and he was perfect for their fit for what they, and he had this great year all of a sudden, then then it wouldn't be like the worst thing ever for them to have just multiple options and try them all out. And if they're all bad, you go back to the well the next year, since they're not going to be able to really compete in the AFC this year. But what's the point? I mean, and also the other thing, there's like no team that Baker's looked worse against than the Steelers. They have just killed that guy when they played him. Like the piled up sacks.
Mike Tomlin's been like, no thanks.
It's just, I just have no clue why they would watch his games up close the way they have and think that's a dude we want. Like, it would stun me. I mean, there's not a good process in Pittsburgh to acquiring talent, but that one would stun me for sure.
His game has been ugly at times, but it's not like Baker Mayfield is ugly himself. But I mean, he's no Blaine Gabbert. I mean, if we're just calling,
he's definitely
he's definitely not even in Blaine's category.
If he joined the Bucs quarterback room and Blaine was there for some reason, or Ryan Griffin were there. Let's just say everybody was there from last season. Yeah, he would be the 4th best looking quarterback in the room.
Yeah,
Blaine, over Trask, maybe.
Griff, Trask, Brady. Then
wait, Trask is not better looking.
No, I take that back. Yeah, Brady's 3rd, Trask is 4th, and then Baker would be number 5.
Oh, Baker be 5th, you think? I'd have Baker over Trask, maybe. Well, but that's about it.
Trask has lost some weight. He's looking a little bit more svelte.
Trask is trimming.
We'll see how he looks throwing the ball, though.
Yeah, we haven't seen Trask really more than anything. I'm anxious to see him and what he looks like, I think, this offseason, Scott, because it's going to be like, there are so many people that are already writing him off as a bust. And it's just so silly to me. Like, the greatest quarterback of all time just decided to come out of retirement. Before that, The team hadn't made any moves. They were ready to see what he looked like this year.
Yeah.
I don't think the team has given up on him at all. Will he be good? I've never really thought that he would be. So I'm not going to come off that opinion without having seen him play in a way that disproves me. But I'm also not going to bury the guy and say he's a bust at this point, because he looked like he was going to get a legit shot to win this job going into this season. So I don't know why we're negative about Trask any more than we were.
The thing is, he actually had a really good. I mean, it was the Houston Texans, right? But I mean, he wasn't throwing to Evans or Godwin or anything in that game either, right? It was bad on bad, but he looked good in that Houston Texans game. That was actually a really good performance.
Remember how many passes were dropped? Four drops, and you got no chance on a couple dropbacks.
2 touchdowns, no interceptions.
Right. And I'm not carrying water for the dude at all. Like, if it ends up being a bad pick, I'll call it a bad pick. Everybody knows I will. I'm just not ready to call it a bad pick when you're literally just behind the best quarterback ever. Like,
we're going to give him the benefit of the doubt because he was also a Bucs best bet, and we nailed him in the mock draft too. So
that's right.
He got that going for him.
Right, exactly. So we'll keep it going for him until he proves us otherwise on the field. We got to see what it looks like. I think that's going to be the biggest call. People are really blown away by that. I don't get this one at all, man. Leo with $5 super chat. Leo, as always, we appreciate it. I'm shocked at what Light said on the radio today about Brady, where he basically suggested Brady playing more than just this year. I hope it happens. That's just not what he said, though. Like, he literally just said, hopefully it's 3+ years. Like, he's just saying, like, if Brady wants to keep playing and he's so good, like, we'd keep him. And that just is so obvious to me. I don't.
It really is no different than what he said to you in Indy, John, which is, we'll leave the light on for him. If Brady wants to play, we'll have him back.
Right. And I don't think Brady. I don't know why he'd commit to that right now. If he does feel like he's going to commit to it right now, I don't know why he'd commit in Tampa. What if things are terrible this year? I don't know. You just never. But everybody wants to be a free agent, and especially if he has a chance to close it out in his career and he wants to keep playing. I don't know. I mean, it just doesn't make much sense to me that an extension would happen. But I don't know why it would be surprising that if Brady wanted to keep playing, that Jason would want him to do it, to continue doing it in Tampa Bay. That just seems
That's just common
very
sense.
obvious to me. I'm clearly in the minority because everybody's buzzing about it right now.
We'd like to have Tom back, but really it's time to turn the team over to Kyle Trask and see what we have in our second round pick.
Right. Get out of here, goat. But and Tom has not said anything about at all, period, really, other than that one statement. But would be nice to have him available to us at some point. I think Scott
would be nice. Yeah.
Best quarterback of all time retires and then unretires. Cool if the media could talk to him, I think.
That would be nice,
But I do think because he hasn't said much, maybe people are just assuming this is this last year, but I've never really assumed that. I just think he's going to continue to evaluate things after
I think Giselle's assuming that.
She might be. I don't know. Again, I don't want to assume there either. I don't,
Yeah, I don't know what type of bargain he had to strike there to come out of retirement. But
she seemed very supportive and excited. I don't know.
So, I mean, remember, folks. Seriously, there's audio and video of this. The minute Brady wins the Super Bowl at Raymond James Stadium, John and I are up there in the press box in disbelief. We're like, "Wow, this is amazing!" Giselle and the kids are running towards Brady, and she says something to the effect of like, "Are you done now? Like, what do you have left to prove?"
I think
something like that.
Yeah, I think that. Well, I hate assuming in these things, but to me, what I thought in my head was more like they talked about this, like him going to another team, and if he could win a Super Bowl outside of the structure in New England, and how that was something you need to prove to other people. Yeah. And I think it was more like a celebration, like you literally proved like what we talked about. That's how I processed it. Everybody processes these.
Yeah, I thought it was more like you've got some chores to do, buddy. Like some vacuuming.
That's not how I started. But
we're done now. Are we? Are we not? You're done. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So we've kind of covered the quarterback conversation. I think I don't think either of us believe Baker is any business in Tampa Bay at all. I think the Browns are going to have a hard time moving him, to be honest with you. But that's probably a conversation for another pod. I don't know that there's many teams that will be interested and have the cap space, and the Browns really they don't even care what they get. They just really want to get rid of the cap space, I think, to clear it. So we'll see what happens. But a good question here from Chris, because it ties into some things that we should probably touch on as well. Is there a guard we can draft that can start right away? Who? There are obviously in this first round, potentially, if Zion Johnson is there. We are huge fans of him. We would applaud that pick. He's a natural left guard, so it makes a ton of sense. Fits everything about the Bucs. I would be shocked if he wasn't high on their board. Kenyon Green from Texas A&M could be an option as well. He's played a lot of different O-line spots, not as polished as Zion Johnson. Maybe there's greater upside, but his body is not as in as good a shape as Johnson's. Yeah. I think he might be there for the Bucs. I wouldn't be crazy about that pick if there's some other names there.
Yeah,
the other name
wasn't say for Kenyon Green, for older Buccaneer fans like me, if you remember Frank Middleton, who started at right guard as a rookie, he was, I believe, a third-round draft pick in 1997. Also, with Ronnie Barber was the third-round draft pick that year. But I kind of like that physical, nasty mauler type, but not a real good technician, sloppy body. You know, that's kind of Kenyon Green. Now he's better than Middleton was, so he's got that going for him. But just that's the mental picture that you would kind of want to have in your head when you're talking about him.
The technique is definitely has a ways to go, but he's big and strong and very quick off the ball. So there's a lot of traits that worth developing there. But those guys could be available. But then I guess today, J.C. Allen was on the call with Mel Kiper from ESPN, and Mel's lost a couple steps maybe, and so he's not quite as on it as maybe he used to be. But he did mention after those guys, if the Bucs do go offensive line, maybe Dylan Parham from Memphis. Parham is a smaller guard, but the Bucs have, like I said, I've said this in past podcasts, they've been kind of all over the place, physically, athletically, with the profile of offensive linemen they've drafted. They really just went nasty.
Now. Yeah, 6'1", 300 pounds,
Yeah, like they have a very different prototype. I mean, Alex Kapp is basically a bottom tier athlete inside for a guard in the NFL, physical makeup, athletic makeup, all of it. And then you have guys at the other end of the spectrum like Wirfs and Marpet and Smith, so they're willing to step outside that box that they typically draft in for guys that have the right mentality. And Parham was small in college, and everybody talked about he needed to bulk up. Well, he showed up to the combine. I think it was 308, 311, something like that at the combine.
He played around 285 or so at Memphis.
It's just crazy. And he tested great at his new weight. So I'd love to have a conversation with him, but everybody says he's nasty and definitely fits some things the Bucs are looking for. I don't think the fit would be weird to us, Scott, but do you think if like the top guard on their board, let's say it's Zion, isn't there, that they'll draft a guard that earlier? Are they pretty good with the group that they have? I mean, they've got a lot of young options that they like. 4 or 5 are under contract at least this season, next season. Feels like they're in a pretty good spot with the O-line. Obviously, left guard's somewhat of a question.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, you look right now, and there's one hole left on offense, right? And we're expecting Rob Gronkowski to come back. We're expecting now a defensive-minded draft. As a matter of fact, we've got our mock draft coming out tomorrow. Remember, I said it was going to be coming out on Tuesday, but wanted to see some of these pro days here. So it's almost done. It'll be published tomorrow morning on pewterreport.com. So check out our latest Pewter Report 7-round Bucs mock draft. But yes, why is guard a concern when Stinney did so well? Well, Stinney played well in a limited span of time, and he's been a good spot player. He's yet to go wire to wire with the full season. So that question has to be asked. But he's also in a 1-year prove-it deal with the Buccaneers, so he's got a big-time opportunity here. Nick Leverett is also a player that the Buccaneers are high on. He was a player that stood out to John and I and Matt Matera and Casey Hudson, everybody at training camp. We were watching him, and I thought that he looked like a player that was kind of an up-and-comer. And the thing with Leverett is they were playing him a little bit out of position. They tried him at left tackle. He does have the athleticism to kind of do that in terms of the footwork, but he's just built like a guard. Doesn't have the long arms, doesn't have the size that you want at tackle. But in a pinch, he could get you out of a game in an emergency situation. But he's a real natural guard. So I think those are the two headliners there. Then you look at Robert Hainsey. They've got a 3rd-round draft pick invested in him. He'll be the backup center this year, but you might as well throw him in the mix and get him cross-trained too. He spent pretty much every minute learning how to play center last year. So I think he's got that down from a behind-the-scenes standpoint. So cross-train him at guard, have a little bit of a battle royale there. And for whatever reason, John, I think that they've done a real good, quiet job of stockpiling talent. You got some dark horses in John Molchan, who's been around in the practice squad forever.
Got a lot better last year. Year 1 to year 2 for him was a big improvement before he got
Darius Hutcherson is a player they really like out of South Carolina who was really
also liked him on tape. Yeah, I had a 4th-round grade on him, I think. I liked him. So
big time. He was a free agent pickup. Now he's coming off of a knee injury, has a ways to go as a pass protector, but a really good physical player in the run game. So I'm with you, John. Unless Zion Johnson fell to them at 27, which I don't think is going to happen. He's just that good of a player.
Right.
I don't see them going offensive guard for a while, unless there's a player that just stands out like a sore thumb, who's the best player on the board in a given round. But the players you mentioned, Zion Johnson, Kenyon Green, and Dylan Parham from Memphis, those are three guys that could fit. I just don't know if they're going to spend the draft capital that early on a position where they've got Stinney, Leverett, and some of these other guys they like.
Yeah, Luke Goodkey's another one. I don't know if I'm saying that last name right, but he's another one that I think fits
Central Michigan.
Yeah, I think that he fits the Bucs MO extremely well too.
Yeah.
The real questions is because think about it just from a roster standpoint. If Josh Wells comes back like we expect and Stinney wins the job, then you've got Leverett, Hainsey, and Wells that are kind of locks to be backups pretty much. I mean, maybe Leverett, it shouldn't be called a lock if he came out at a terrible camp, but they clearly like him. They want to keep him in the mix. You know, he's probably a good inside shot to be that first backup at guard, can play their spot, can move around the O-line a little bit. I mean, so they've got three guys there. Okay, so now if you bring somebody in, you're carrying 9 offensive linemen, and now Hutcherson and Molshin are not really making progress toward the active roster, which could be fine. I'm not saying that's a problem.
They might be practice squad guys again.
Yeah, and maybe that's fine. Maybe it pushes Leverett to the fringe, to the 9th spot. And if you draft somebody, I'm all for, if Zion's there, I'm all for drafting him. I'm all for it. No question about it.
Yep.
But I don't want to reach for anybody at guard, especially if you have other needs. Like, I feel like they might think they're okay. So just looking at it from the team's perspective,
right,
I do think they might think they're okay at guard going into this draft.
I agree. And I think this is going to be kind of a defensive-minded draft. When we look here at the updated defensive players.
Just quickly, even before we look at defense, Scott, I think I completely agree with you. And I just want to say, I think we'll know this for sure if Gronk's back.
Yeah.
And if they sign like an RB, like a pass catching running, like a McKinnon or Williams or Bernard, like a pass catching running back, because then they would have basically 3 backs, and they would not be pushing a priority to draft a back early. Lenny's an every down guy. You have your pass catcher. They like Vaughn going into year 3. They want an expanded role for him. Outlook if they add that guy, and if they add Gronk back into the fold, they will draft a tight end probably at some point, but it doesn't need to be a high priority. They're pretty set at wideout. Even if they draft one at some point, probably won't be a high priority because they have got everybody under contract for the next couple of years. So there's no real non-injury path to playing time. And then we've already said how we feel about the O-line. So those are the 2 moves. If they re-sign Gronk and sign a cheap, 3rd down type running back, and there's still plenty available, then those 2 moves will basically solidify for me that I think the first couple picks in this draft are going to be defense.
Yeah, I'm with you, John. And I believe too that we have some defensive players early in our latest mock draft that hits tomorrow. So make sure, folks, that you check out pewterreport.com. Tomorrow, the new Bucs 7-round mock draft coming. So check that out. In the meantime, what we'll do is we'll check out the Bucs roster situation in terms of the holes. And you see here, you're kind of down to really 2 spots. Now, you could say Mike Edwards is a starter, and we'll talk about the safety position in just a second. But right now, with the addition of Will Gholston back on the team for a 10th season, which is a remarkable feat for Will. Congrats. He's one of our favorite interviews.
Yeah.
Great guy.
Awesome dude, and just been unsung his whole career there. Could go somewhere else and maybe get more attention, not playing with all the stars on Tampa Bay's defense, but man, he's just been a staple of Tampa Bay for a while. He's gotten better too. Last 2 years have been his best 2 years, so no reason to think that won't continue.
Career high 4.5 sacks last year, so that was a pleasant surprise because he's really known as that run stuffing defensive lineman. But so right now you're looking at an Ndamukong Suh, right? I mean, the placeholder right now is Rakeem Nunez-Roches, who's on a contract, a very valuable reserve, can play nose and that 3 tech. But we expect Ndamukong Suh probably be the next domino to fall, either that or Rob Gronkowski, but I think we're narrowing down to there. Then you look at the safety position, John. They have told Andrew Adams, AA, we love you, but we're not bringing you back. And then you let Jordan Whitehead go. They did sign Logan Ryan, who has some ability there, but really neither you nor I, and you mentioned this again in your Bucs briefing column today, just don't see a great scheme fit at strong safety. He's not a Jordan Whitehead type player. You and I would love to see him challenge Sean Murphy-Bunting for the slot cornerback role. Davis, Jamel Dean, Sean Murphy-Bunting, those are right now the starting 3 corners. But Mike Edwards probably that placeholder right now until they address somebody, and we're not going to give it away today, but we do have the Buccaneers drafting a pretty interesting safety in our 7-round mock draft.
Absolutely. Very excited about that. The nice thing about this, Scott, I think if they get Gronk back and they get Sue back, they will go into the draft feeling like they have no starting spots to fill, which is how they always want to operate. They know they always can't, but the last couple of years they really have done that. 2020 was the exception. They really had that hole at right tackle. I know they'd signed Joe Haig, but nobody really took that seriously, or should they have. So I do think that is kind of one of the keys for them, right, going into this. And they had that hold safety as well. So Winfield, we didn't know that at the time. We didn't know what Justin Evans' status was going to be like, or how they viewed Mike Edwards necessarily. This will tell us a lot, though. If you pull up that defensive group again, like I think right now you've got Sue, and if he fills that spot, they're back where they need to be on the defensive line, so they have flexibility. But there is no question, Scott, two things I think you and I are very confident about. The Bucs would love to draft defensive tackles. Sue is older. Nacho is clearly a career backup. There's no change. There's no upside there at this point. Gholston is older. They're both probably going to be playing both Gholston and Sue on 1-year deals. And McClendon comes back, it'll be the same thing. So they need more talent here. The other thing we're sure about is that this defensive tackle class is not that deep or not that great. And the Bucs themselves, if you just listen to Jason when he was in Indy, like it's just clear they're not that crazy about the D tackle class. And it's frustrating because that's 2 years in a row, maybe 3 years in a row, where there just has not been a lot there in terms of defensive tackle talent.
You're right. And it's really been the second year in a row, and they'd love to draft one, right? They would love to have somebody to grow next to Vita Vea for the long term, but it's tough. It's really tough to draft somebody that just isn't there, right?
They've done a good job not reaching too. Like look at last year's class. I mean, across the board, it was almost all disappointing. Barmore, a little bit of pass rush ability, but almost everybody disappointed across the board in last year's class. Bucs would have loved to take one, but they were smart to stay out of it really because the talent just wasn't there. I don't know if I lost you there, but I'm back. Oh, you're back. Oh, good.
Yeah. I agree. And, the interesting thing, John, is how you might have to manufacture some interior pass rushes, something you and I've kind of bantered about as well. Right.
Good transition.
And that's I'm of the opinion that I think Joe Tryon-Shoyinka's rookie season, his growth was stunted. Now, I interviewed Joe, I want to say late November, where he was, he's almost pretty much through the whole season. And I asked him about that. Do you feel like your growth got stunted? He said no. He loved playing all over because it really helped him understand the defense better and get a grasp of that better. And I get that, and that's valid. And I'm not saying he's full of it because, he knows better than I. But at the same time, when you're what's the phrase? When you're a jack of all trades, you're a master of none.
Sure.
And I think that in year 2, he would benefit from finding a home. And I'd love to see it, honestly, with his body type and makeup at left outside linebacker. And I'd love to have Shaq Barrett on the right outside linebacker, like he did most of the time in 2019 when he racked up 19 and a half sacks, going one-on-one against left tackles. And not having to fight those tight end, right tackle double teams. I think JTS is better suited for that. He's longer, more physical, probably a step faster, and have him find a home. But the thing is, we know Todd Bowles likes to move guys inside. He did that in 2019 with Jason Pierre-Paul as the interior nickel rusher. He did that last year when Pierre-Paul couldn't go inside with that shoulder injury. He had to use JTS in that role. So maybe the plan this year, John, is to find a bigger guy that has some flexibility to not just rush from the outside, but maybe come inside as well in that nickel situation. And that affords JTS the ability to stay outside and just be that edge rusher that he's drafted to be.
Sure. And JTS was really good when they put him inside last year. So certainly understandable why they did that. It was one of the big factors in the Giants game. The Giants couldn't do anything because JTS just wrecked everybody. Like it was
in Buffalo too. I thought he had a good game with Buffalo.
Absolutely. There was good reps from him. Again, it's just collective and finishing. That was the issue. Like, can you get collective good reps together? but all the flashes you want to see from a first-year guy who had just spent a year off the field and we knew was going to be raw coming in were there in terms of ability. Now, yeah, you got to put it all together. You can't have a year, this year like last year's. You have to build on it and get better. I think they're confident that he will, but that's the biggest question mark on their defense, in my opinion, is what he looks like in his second season. The other part of it is exactly what you're talking about. The reality is that the Bucs probably aren't in position to draft the Devontae Wyatt, who might be able to help them right away. So what do? They could bring back the old heads at defensive tackle and run it back again with that group and probably be good enough for sure as a pass rush group, but probably not great. And we know what they'll be as a run defense group, I think. But that's the question. How can you take that 4-man rush group and make it great? So I've just been brainstorming, and you have been too, I know. Okay, well, what's the plan going to be here? Because Bruce was clear. We need more explosive interior pass rush ability. He said interior pass rush like 3 times at the combine.
That lasting image of Aaron Donald in Tom Brady's face, right? That's he's like, we need to get one of these Aaron Donald fellas. That's what he was thinking.
So I don't know that there's a path to doing that if you're not going to take an edge and play him inside more, not as a full-time player, but play him inside situationally.
Nickel
use
rusher,
kind of like a 3-man rotation. Keep it kind of like they do now with Vea. Hopefully not as little snaps as Vea plays, but have Barrett and JTS and have a 3-man rotation. Sometimes have a 4-man rotation with Anthony Nelson. I think they've kind of talked about how much they like that. And I don't know if they see Cam Gill as an every down type of player.
Right.
So I know I said like 2 weeks ago, I'd be surprised if they drafted an edge defender. My stance on that has kind of shifted. So I take that back. I was probably wrong on that. I don't know if they'll draft a true edge, or if they'll draft like a versatile piece. Like the defender that I hinted at on Monday's show is Boy Mafe.
Yeah.
Boy Mafe from Minnesota. Another Minnesota guy that took Winfield and Tyler Johnson. And he's close with Winfield, especially, and talked about him to me at the Senior Bowl, raved about those guys, said how great it would be to play with the Bucs. That to me is a really seamless fit because there's things that the Bucs have constantly looked for. Look at the players they just added. And they're all top-notch people, top-notch workers, super physical, aggressive, leaders. And Mafe is all of those things. He's heralded for his character, his work ethic, his leadership. He's a freak athlete, similar to JTS. Freak body, similar to JTS. Bigger body, though, can move inside, already has that strength that he played a little bit inside at Minnesota, rushed from inside, can run games, figure all those kind of things out. He's a little bit older. His production in college wasn't crazy good. It was fine. He got to double-digit sacks. I mean, we're talking about a draft class where none of these dudes really blew it away, and nobody even in this class at the top has even hit 20 college sacks. So Mafe had 15, I believe, and 7 in his best season
last year. Yeah.
Which was his best year. So he got better as it went. He's still figuring things out. He's still getting better.
Senior Bowl week. Had a good Senior Bowl week, Senior Bowl game,
But he can rush inside. He played great at the Senior Bowl, like you said. He beat guys one-on-one at Minnesota. One of his big problems and why I think his production wasn't better is they often had him playing in like a square stance, Scott, with his feet like directly parallel to each other rather than a staggered stance, which obviously helps your get off. His burst off the ball is one of the best in this class. And I've said it a million times. The 4 pillars of pass rush athleticism, burst off the ball is the primary one. If you can do that, that it really sets the table for you as a rusher. He has that. That gives me a lot of encouragement that he's going to be a more productive player in the NFL. Minnesota had him in that square stance, just kind of firing out, anchoring one end a lot of the time. When they let him rush as the open side end, he really was effective. The problem was he just mixed up and played a lot of different roles and was in the 4-eye for them. And I just think you're going to see a much better player in college. He can bulk up a little bit, or right now he's trim and looks great, and he could bulk up a little bit, but he's going to be a versatile chess piece. But that's a name I'd have your eye on at the end of the first round. That's kind of the range a lot of people think for him. And I just think the Bucs could be there for him. They might be able to even trade down a little bit. And get
and John, you're hearing it too. This first round is really bad just in terms of talent. This is not a good first round at all,
especially in certain positions.
Yes. I mean, like when there's not even like a consensus top quarterback, right? It's bad. Right. So, and there's not even a consensus like left tackle even, right? I mean, there's not even a consensus edge rusher. I think Hutchinson's probably the best guy, but it just, when you don't have the consensus guys at, I think Sauce Gardner probably the top cornerback, but there's just so many positions where there's not even a consensus guy. I mean, you and I have talked, is Devontae White going to be the first defensive tackle? Is it going to be Jordan Davis, right? This is a great year for the Buccaneers to actually be drafting 27. right? And there's people in the organization that actually feel that way. They're like, I'm glad that we're not drafting 15 or 12 or something, because we're not necessarily going to get a better player in terms of talent than we are at 27. And so I think what you're going to see is and the mock draft people, the national media, that they try to get some consensus. I mean, there's some guys they like to be they have the outlier picks and the trendy, I'm going to put this guy in the first round. But this is the year where it's always beauty's in the eye of the beholder, but you're going to see more so than ever, especially I'd say from 20 on, players that you think are second round picks, they're going to go 20, they're going to go 21, they're going to go 22. Like Travis Jones, probably a second round pick out of UConn. He's probably going to go in the first round because there's like 3 good defensive tackles in this year's draft. So if you want one, you got to get one, right? And it's the same at a lot of those positions. So I think you're going to see a lot of names in the second round that are going to be first rounders. Guys that you think might be a third rounder go in the second round this year. It's just going to be kind of all over the place because the real value in the level of talent in this draft, there's not much difference between first and second round, and there's not much difference between third and the fourth round. This is a middle draft value. This is second, third, and fourth round. That's really where the value is in this year's draft.
And this is why no Bucs fans should be surprised if they move down this year. I just really think that. I think they would have moved down last year, to be honest, if Joe Tryon-Shoyinka wasn't on the board, because the problem last year was there was no place to put the picks if they got more, and there was no place on the roster. This year, the starting lineup is probably set, but the depth is not as great. So there's places you can slot guys in for sure, safety, corner. Like there's a lot of spots where you can slot guys in. So, and they don't have a 5th round pick and they don't have a 6th round pick and they have 2 late 7ths, I believe, Scott. So there's clearly kind of a need there to maybe get a little bit more depth in this draft. They can do it. I wouldn't totally rule out. This is totally me just guessing, Scott. Yeah. But I wouldn't totally rule out at some point this offseason trying to trade Tyler Johnson or Scotty Miller for a 6th round pick. Something I agree. Like that. If you could get it.
Yep. Yeah. I'm all in favor of that. Speaking of late round picks, Mikey with the $1.99 super chat. Thank you. Thoughts on Josh Revis from KSU? That's probably a question for me.
It's probably your wheelhouse.
That's probably my wheelhouse. I've seen a lot of Josh Revis. He's a good guard. I think he's a day 3 guy, probably rounds 5, 6, 7. Big, massive, kind of run mauler guy. Not terribly athletic. Is not the kind of guy that's going to pull. It's going to get to the second level very often. He's a kind of a phone booth guy. But in some schemes that's really like a man scheme type, he kind of reminds me a little bit of Sedarius Hutcherson, the Bucs guard that they just got, where he's raw. He's big. He's got some athletic tools. He's got great size. But like Hutcherson was an undrafted guy, wouldn't be surprised if Revis goes 5th, 6th, 7th rounder or undrafted. It just he's a scheme fit. He is not really a zone type of guard. There's not a lot of lateral movement to his game. It's north-south, smash the guy in front of you. But I like him. If that's your scheme, then, and I think he could be okay in Tampa with their run scheme. The problem is this is a pass-first offense. You got to be able to pass protect. And I think that's kind of the problem there. Kansas State's offense is not what it used to be under Bill Snyder, which was the quarterback run game. The last couple of years, we've had Chris Kleiman, who came from North Dakota State. And so, you think Trey Lance, you think Easton Stick, you think Carson Wentz. It's a very run-heavy offense. It's basically, it's the old 50-50 offense, 50% pass, 50% run, a lot of play action. So that's kind of where Revis is as a player.
Right. Makes sense. Yeah. Seems like could be a fit, but way later down the line, it might be the way to go with that. There's some questions about Tyler Johnson, and then just in general, I think the Scotty Miller, Giovanni Bernard. Yeah. I don't know why Giovanni Bernard, is this about a trade? Maybe this question, I don't know, but Giovanni Bernard's not under contract yet. So think of that.
John, there was a question, I forgot who asked it, about Jameson Williams. And then also, I think you could probably throw in David Ojabo from Michigan in the mix too. 2 players that were very high first-round locks, right? I mean, Jameson Williams might have been the number 1 wide receiver if he didn't tear his ACL. Ojabo probably a top 10 to 20, depending on the team and
Right.
the scheme fit, outside rusher. But now those players, if you draft them, they're not playing for you during the rookie season. Are the Buccaneers in position, right? Would you take a shot at 27 on one of those players that might have top 10, top 15 talent?
No. I mean,
it doesn't make sense this year.
I wouldn't take this shot. Now, first, I think they're in totally different situations. Jameson Williams did get hurt, but his is an ACL tear. I don't know all the details, so it could be a bad tear or worse than normal. I don't know that. It doesn't sound like it is, though. All the reports, of course, they always are because they're from the agent, but they all sound positive. And
that happened 2 months ago too.
Yeah, and it happened 2 months ago,
2 days ago,
right. And to be honest, it's there are obviously extenuating situations. It might take him a while to feel totally confident, but from a physical perspective, ACL recovery is fairly straightforward these days, especially compared to where it used to be. So it's not totally not unconcerning. It'll affect things maybe. Like you said, he could have been the first receiver off the board. I don't think he's going to be the first receiver off the board. I do think he's going to go high, though. I'll be shocked if he's not a first rounder.
He's still a first rounder now.
Yeah, and I'll be pretty shocked if he's off the board, if he's on the board when the Bucs pick at 27. Yeah. And even if he is, I would not take him. I don't feel that confidently about him, especially in a wide receiver room that's set for I mean, Russell Gage. I was not expecting that. You and I thought Pringle for like a year or two with the first year guaranteed. We weren't expecting a 3-year, $30 million deal for a third wide receiver. The Bucs cared more than we even did.
That's right.
And so that changes things in terms of priority. I really would be surprised if they took a receiver in the first round, just because the path to playing time is not clear at this point in time.
Treylon Burks, if he's there.
Again, I like Treylon Burks.
You want him?
It would shock me.
Too,
yeah, I mean, it would shock me. I wouldn't hate it. It just would be.
I wouldn't hate it either.
Who's the other player? Oh, Ajabo is different. He tore his Achilles. That is not as standard still. That's still one of the injuries that can be a little concerning. It's obviously better. There's a path back. I just don't think the Bucs would take anybody injured, period. Like they just haven't done it in free agency. Haven't really done it in the draft. Like health has been a pretty big priority for them. They got the Evans and Beckwith thing and the OJ Howard stuff. Not that those guys were super hurt before in college, but I think that's just they don't want to be bringing in everybody they brought in.
The club in the tub.
They want guys that are a little bit more health. Yeah, they're pretty obsessed with that, I think. So I'd be shocked if either were Bucs. Ajabo, again, you're probably not getting him for this season with his injury, or not getting him for most of it.
If you look at Cam Akers, right, that's almost the exception.
Yeah, that was such an absurd tweet. Did you see that?
Yeah.
Somebody was like, there's no reason to think that Ajabo won't be out.
No, that's the exception.
We've never seen that happen. Now that's just the standard. Like,
that's like Adrian Peterson tearing his ACL and then rushing for 2,000 yards the next year, right?
Agents need to be stopped in some of these situations. Steven asks, John, what do you think of Tyler Smith making him a guard? I haven't studied his tape fully yet, but I do think he'll probably be a guard. He is so aggressive. It's funny. The other day, Trevor. Trevor Sickova and we always texted about draft prospects. He texted me. He's like, dude, you got to watch Tyler Smith. I just spent like an hour interviewing him, and he's like the best dude ever. And I guess he just raved about Tyler Smith in the interview, and he thinks he's going to wow teams. He thinks Tyler Smith could be even a first round pick.
Yeah, like that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. This year, it's going to be crazy. You're going to hear names that you thought would be drafted later in the first round.
Yeah. I mean, his technique is a mess right now. I've seen enough to know that, but upside could be pretty significant for him.
Right.
Did I just skip one?
That's okay. I was just going to answer this real quick. Is there a prototype Mike Allstott out there we can get? The closest guy to Mike Allstott is Tyler Algier from BYU. I think that's probably
I think we'd see this one.
the bowling ball, like tackle breaking guy. And the other guy is maybe Damian Pierce. I'm coming around on Pierce. I know that's going to shock a lot of people, but I've actually done more film work on him. I've watched more games, and he's growing on me a little bit. And the reason why is because they're going to draft Damian Pierce, and I don't want to be pissed off about it. I want to be like, okay, all right, fine, I'm all right with it.
That's right. We all fully believe
that's happened too many times, especially at my beloved running back position. They drafted Carnell Williams on my birthday, April 23rd. They drafted Carnell Williams in 2005. Ruined my night.
Who were you, a Ronnie Brown guy or?
I was Ronnie Brown, yes. But the thing is, like at that point in time, I was like, okay, DeMarcus Ware is right there. That's the pick out of Troy. He's Simeon Rice 2.0. Monty Kiffin's going to blow his friggin' mind. No, John Gruden drafted the fifth overall pick, the third running back, because Cedric Wilson went in the fourth round, and I knew they were going to draft Carnell Williams if he was there. I knew it. because they went to the Senior Bowl that year, and they didn't even play Cornell Williams Cadillac in the Senior Bowl that year because they didn't want him to get hurt. That was their guy.
That is
so,
pain.
Yes.
Pain.
So when that
DeMarcus
happened,
Ware is one of the best defensive players I've ever seen.
Oh, yes. It was slam dunk.
Injured running back.
And the thing is, John, DeMarcus Ware was at the Senior Bowl too. Monty Kiffin was frothing at the mouth for this guy, right?
Right.
He is Simeon Rice 2.0. You go from Simeon Rice handing the baton 100%. To DeMarcus Ware, your pass rush is set, and they blew it.
Yeah, and a leader and a run defense, everything. He was everything. Devin with the $2 super chat. His cornerback Cam Taylor-Britt from Nebraska fit physically. I think I haven't watched a ton of his tape. He was not great at the Senior Bowl, but physically,
physically. I haven't watched enough tape either. I'm on to cornerbacks now. We got an interesting cornerback we're going to put in our mock tomorrow. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah. $5 super chat here from Ant as we close things up. What about that running back from Texas A&M? Have you all looked at his tape yet? And do you see them drafting a young tight end? So this is CJ Spiller, right?
Yeah.
And
Isaiah Spiller. That's CJ
Isaiah Spiller. Yeah. CJ's is what? Bro, how are they related? He's related to CJ, right? The old
I don't
Bucs or Clemson. I think he is. I'm pretty sure I've read that.
It's just I always call Leonard Floyd Leonard Little. Just
Leonard Little,
they're outside pass rushers named Leonard. So
right. Okay, so for Spiller, I've watched some, but he ran 4.63 at his pro day the other day, which is interesting. I don't care that much about speed for running backs. Pro day usually add about 0.05 to 0.10 to each 40. So he might be like close to a 4.7 running back, which is getting into the danger zone a little bit. You don't love to see that. Everybody at Texas A&M basically ran like they'd never run before at their pro day. So that's a little bit concerning. I don't know what's going on there, but I don't know, Scott. This running back class is weird. It's like a lot of guys you could see sticking in the league, but there's not a lot of guys that you could see being like an ideal feature back, 1,000-yard rusher every year or anything like that, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's an interesting class because for what the Buccaneers are looking for, pass catching, pass protecting, running the ball in between the tackles, there's some good fits. It just there's not that clear. There's not a Jonathan Taylor in this draft. I mean, the closest thing would be Breece Hall. He's not a bad back. I don't see the Buccaneers drafting him because I think he's going to go in the upper part of the second round. I don't think he's even going to be there for the Buccaneers when they pick at number 60. So I just don't think that he's going to be in contention. Spiller might be. Keep in mind, Alvin Kamara, Kareem Hunt, there's some players that weren't, first round backs that have had good 1,000-yard seasons that just didn't wow you at the 40-yard dash time. It's the 40-yard dash. I mean, I think Leonard Fournette had 4 carries of 30 yards or more last year out of all the carries he had. You just don't get the breakaway runs in the NFL because the safeties are too good of a tacklers. The linebacker level is too good. The cornerbacks are too good. So what you're looking for are guys really, when you're scouting running backs, did they get the 15-yard, guys? Did they make guys miss? Can they get to the second level and a little bit more? If you see running backs that can do that consistently, break tackles, slip tackles, that's way more important than breakaway speed. It really is.
Right. Completely agree with you. I think that's the biggest thing that people need to understand about running backs is that this long speed is so unimportant most of the time because the reality is you do not get many long breakaway runs in today's NFL. It's all about maximizing your carries to get kind of what's right there. Most of the time, that means if you can turn 4 yards into 6 yards or 8 yards or 10 yards, it doesn't mean
that's
40-yard runs. It just it's nice if you have it, but it's a cherry on the top if you have that speed, I think.
Speaking of cherry on the top, boy, the folks at MyBookie have got a tremendous deal for you because we're still in March Madness. I mean, it's been March Madness in Tampa, John. Let's face it. Brady comes back, Russell Gage, trade for Shaq Mason, sign Logan Ryan, get Chris Godwin back for a cheap $20 million per year contract, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the real March Madness continues this weekend, right? It's March Madness with the hoops, and it's officially begun. It's time for you to shoot your shot and score big on the nonstop action with MyBookie. It doesn't matter whether you've filled out multiple brackets, whether you're betting on the national championship winner, or if you're just simply looking for player and game props, MyBookie has you covered. Sign up today at MyBookie. Use that promo code PEWTER to secure a first deposit bonus up to $1,000. It's simple. Just use the promo code PEWTER to claim that bonus. College hoops, March Madness, the NBA, the UFC, no matter the sport, baseball is going to be around the corner. Hockey's going on right now. No matter the sport, no matter the minute, MyBookie puts the action in your hands with live in-game betting. And with the choice of thousands of lines and odds to choose from, you can turn any game day into payday. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere with our friends at MyBookie.
Great stuff from MyBookie and great stuff from all y'all today. We appreciate you jumping in here in the show with us. If you could, before you leave, give us the thumbs up, please. Give us the like on YouTube. That helps boost our YouTube algorithm. We get out to more people subscribe to the show. We're successful. Y'all are successful. Everybody wins. We have more talent on the show, blah, blah, blah. It's all great. So please make sure you do that. We are close, right, to 8,000, Scott. We're close to 8,000
we're less than 200 away, thanks to you guys. Wow. So thank you very much.
Have bumped that up crazy over the last few weeks. It's really exciting to see. We got more excitement on the way. The Bucs are not done making moves. Jason Light's been clear about that. There's going to be more action coming in the next few weeks. And then we get into April and we are prepping hard for the draft and our draft show, obviously, Scott. So there will be a lot happening at PeterReport.com and obviously on the Peter Report YouTube channel as well. So new Bucs 7-round mock draft coming tomorrow over at PeterReport.com. This is where it starts getting good. Our early mock drafts are fun, but this is where it starts getting. We've heard stuff at the combine.
Darts before,
right? We've talked to people. We are very much narrowing it down. I hate our first ones because I'm just there are a million free agents.
John, the only time that I've liked the early ones is when the Bucs are picking like first, and it's Jameis Winston, or fifth, and it's Devin White. Like that's
right. Those are the
then
times,
it's fun, but
no question about it. So that's coming tomorrow, and we've got a little bit of a better idea. So you're going to want to get your eyes on that over at PeterReport.com, obviously. Until then, and tomorrow we'll be back with another show, by the way, 4 p.m. Eastern as well. So until then, thanks so much, everybody, for listening to another edition of the Peter Report podcast. Out.